Hello students and welcome to video 2 in chapter 5.4 location. So in the first video we looked at reasons why businesses locate their business in a certain place. We then looked at offshoring. So in this video we're going to look at reshoring and then outsourcing. So first thing to look at is reshoring. So in the first video we looked at offshoring, and this is when a business moves parts of its business to another country. So let's use an example here. A US business moves part of its production to China. So historically, over the last few years, that's what's happened. So reshoring would be the opposite of offshoring. In some textbooks, this is also called inshoring or onshoring. The IB syllabus, they call it reshoring. So that's the term we're going to use in this video. And so reshoring is transferring part of the business back to the original country, having previously reshored it. So for example, a US business originally transferred production to China. So they offshored to China, and now they're bringing it back to the US. So reshoring would be this process here where they're bringing production back from China, back home, if you like, back to the US. So the key thing here is we can only reshore if we originally offshore. So you can't reshore without offshoring, if that makes sense. So what are possible reasons for this? Well, the possible reasons might be the opposite of offshoring that we did in video 1. Specifically, they might be things like there's higher transportation costs. So one of the reasons that some US businesses are doing this is because the price of oil has gone up a lot in the last few years, now transportation costs are a lot higher. So in order to get products back from China to the US or whether they're delivering them to, the actual costs are higher now. So in many ways, it's actually cheaper to do in the US, and then you avoid those transportation costs. Maybe there's political reasons, so there's pressure to move jobs home. So businesses can gain negative publicity. If they move production out of the country, then a number of people will lose their job, become redundant. So if you actually move the production back home, you actually create those jobs again, which can be politically or media very popular. And no longer have the same cost benefit. So over the last 20 years, labor costs in China have actually gone up a lot. And so maybe now it doesn't make as much cost sense for businesses to actually have their production in China. So they move them home. Yeah, maybe labor costs are still a bit higher, but then they avoid the transportation costs, etc. So there are various reasons for reshoring. There are many other reasons as well. These are some of the possibilities. Okay, let's move on to outsourcing, also known as subcontracting. So this is similar to offshoring, slightly different. Transferring part of the business to an external firm rather than doing it within the business. So offshoring was when we move production or part of the business to another country. Here we're actually going to now get another company to do it for us. And this could be all parts of the business. So here we've got all parts of the business. In the example with the diagram, in this situation, previously a business did recruitment themselves, so they hired people themselves. What they chose to do here is they then moved recruitment to another business. So they got a recruitment business to actually do the recruitment for them. So this business here, they're a separate business, and the original business will pay this recruitment business in order to hire their staff. So this would be an example of outsourcing, but we could also outsource any part of the business. We could outsource manufacturing, where we get another company to do our production for us, payroll, catering and food. So a lot of businesses, they might have a canteen on their site, but they get another company to come in and actually do the catering for them so they don't have to do it themselves. So what are some pros and cons of outsourcing? There's various, so I've got 3 here. And we're going to do this in the context of, let's say, a concert organizer outsources security. So security are the people who make sure that the concert is safe. And what are various reasons that the concert organizers might do this? So one might be the potential cost saving. So you can see that the security company, they're going to have a lot of security contracts, and therefore they might have economies of scale. Economies of scale, remember, as you increase the scale of production, your unit costs go down. So there's some potential cost savings there. Not necessarily. It might be that the outsourced business is more expensive, but it's potentially improbable that it's going to be cheaper. The outsourced business should have expertise, so higher quality. So you can say that if they get an external security company to do their security for them, they should be experts in that. That's their job, that's their business. So they should, in theory, be able to do it better than if the business hired their own security guards. It also means that the business can focus on the core activities. So you can see a concert organizer. What do? They do concerts. And so therefore, that's their core activity. So if they also have to do security as well, then they're increasing the number of things that they have to do in the business. So by outsourcing it to another business, they can actually just focus on the music, on the concert, if you like. Some cons, well, loss of control and need to monitor quality. So now they've got another business who's doing the security. So they're no longer in control of that. Yes, they can tell the outsourcing business how they want to do it, but they'll also need to monitor the quality. Possible negative publicity. If originally this concert organizer was doing security themselves and now they outsource it, then the security people that they hire will now be made redundant or maybe move to another part of the business. So there's possible negative publicity as people lose their jobs. And if it's production and there's tens of thousands of workers in the factory and they outsource it, then that's tens of thousands of jobs that will go. So that can obviously lead to negative publicity. Additionally, the outsourced business might not know your business very well. So the security company, well, they probably won't know the concert organizer, they won't know their business model, how they run the business, etc. And so therefore, they might not do it how the concert organizer wants them to do it. So that would be another disadvantage. Moving on to insourcing. So we saw earlier that reshoring is the opposite of offshoring. Now, insourcing is the opposite of outsourcing. Confused? Well, let's go through it again. So insourcing is the opposite of outsourcing. So we're transferring part of the business that was previously outsourced to an external firm back to the business. Let's just go through that. So in the last slide, we saw that this business has outsourced recruitment. So they're getting another business to actually do the recruitment for them. Insourcing would be, well, let's bring that recruitment back home. So we're no longer going to use another company to do our recruitment. We're now going to do it ourselves within the company. And so, yeah, the business now performs the business function themselves. This is also called bringing it in-house. So you're kind of bringing it home, if you like. So the previous outsourced production to another company, but now bring it back. So just like reshoring and offshoring, you can only insource if you previously outsourced. So insourcing means we outsourced it and then we're bringing it back within the business. So what are some possible reasons? Well, one might be it's no longer cost efficient. So this is similar to the reshoring thing we did earlier. Maybe previously we were outsourcing recruitment because we could save costs, but now maybe the recruitment company has increased their costs, so it's no longer cost efficient, so we might as well do it ourselves. Maybe there's worries over quality. So maybe the recruitment company is hiring staff, but they're not doing a very good job. Now, one of those reasons might be that they don't know our company. So therefore, if we do it ourselves, we might be able to control and make sure that the quality is good. This is not always the case, but it's one possible reason. And again, maybe we want to have more control over the production process. So one example of insourcing is Apple. So recently, in the last sort of 4 years, Apple have insourced the production of they've insourced how they get their chips that they put in their Macs. So in this situation, they're actually still outsourced the production. So the production of the Apple chips is still done by another company, but the design of the chips is now insourced. So previously, before 2020, I think, Apple got their chips from Intel, but now in 2020, they decided, okay, we're going to now make our own chips. But specifically, Apple decided that they're going to design the chips themselves, but they're still outsourcing the production, but they obviously don't get Intel to make their chips. They get another company to make their chips. So some possible reasons that Apple have done that. Well, one is now that they can design their chips specifically for Apple products. So previously, when they were using Intel chips, the Intel chips would have been a generic thing that could go into potentially any piece of hardware. But now Apple can design their chips in order to be specifically designed for the Macs, the iPhones, etc. Additionally, they can have control over the supply chain as well. So if they're actually directly outsourcing rather than buying their chips from Intel, then they can control the supply chain and make sure they've got access to their chips. One final slide, and this is a bit confusing because I talked about earlier about reshoring, insourcing, etc. Well, what's the difference between outsourcing and offshoring? Well, it gets more complicated. Let me explain. Let's say a UK business is outsourcing its recruitment, like we saw earlier. If the outsourced recruitment business is also in the UK, then this would be outsourcing but not offshoring. Again, it's outsourcing because they're giving it to another company to do. It's not offshoring because that company is still in the UK. However, if they outsource the recruitment business and that recruitment business is in another country, then it would be outsourcing and offshoring. So that's a relationship between the two. We can outsource with offshoring and we can outsource without offshoring. Similarly, if the UK business moved its recruitment department to another country, but they still did it themselves, so they're still doing their own recruitment, but they're moving those recruitment people into a different country, then, you guessed it, this would be offshoring, but not outsourcing. It's not outsourcing because they're still doing it themselves, but it's offshoring because they're moving it to another country. So the key point here is that we can do one or both or neither.